Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up podcast. Soly here. We are ready to talk Oakmont. It is US Open SCN. TC and I took the trip up to the greater Pittsburgh Northeast area, whatever you want to call it. He's calling in from New York today. Hello, Mr. TC.
I am in the Northeast today. We were in the Paris of Appalachia. What was that, last month for Media Day? But I'm actually calling in from Holderness Bourne worldwide headquarters here in Armonk. I flew into LaGuardia this morning and drove up here. So,
well, tell us about what's going on at H&B. I mean, of course, everybody knows you can put an NLU 10 at hbgolf.com, get 10% off your first order. That's the only discount code on the market for H&B. But what else is going on up there?
Yeah, I know they'll be heavily on site at the US Open. They'll be a big part of the merch tent there. They'll have their US Open stuff on hbgolf.com in the lead up as well as during the week. Yeah, I'm gonna get a look at all the fall collection today. That's forthcoming as well. So I'm actually you can see the
Literally in the
lobby
headquarters
here.
right now.
Yeah, hanging out with Alex and John the rest of the day today, and then we're gonna play golf tomorrow morning. So, but yeah, they've got I would say some of the stuff we've got in our shop right now. Like I'm wearing this. This is the Laid Lay. This is an awesome. It's kind of a new and improved version of the Betts pullover. Their seasonal colorways. They've got this citron color that's really popping for kind of spring summer. And then Soly, they'll get into the Liberty stuff, which will be kind of Ryder Cup midsummer into fall stuff as well. So big things happening. The one thing I would really point to is the shorts as well. I think they're the best shorts in the game. And
The hardwood short. That's your guy, right?
Yeah, I've got them in every color, truly. So, yeah, hbgolf.com.
Yeah. I want to shout out the Lawson. This is like just the coziest hoodie you could ever throw on. It's summer and it's not really a summer hoodie, but I really wanted to wear it today.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Right. I mean, shit, I bought this when we were up at Oakmont.
Yeah, you're buying more golf clothes. I can't believe it. Like you have to.
I can't help it. I have an addiction.
I know. All right, we're going to talk Oakmont. Run a show today. TC and I are going to give you a little bit of reaction from us playing the golf course about a month ago. Now, the back half of this episode is going to be Jeff Hall from the USGA. He spoke at the media day as well, but I tracked him down for about a 40-minute interview, just talking about setup, talking about challenges, talking about US Opens in general, how they treat venues and all of that. But up first is going to be our reaction to it. TC, what did you know about Oakmont going in and kind of what differed from that? What was the same from what you were expecting? Just tell me a little bit about your immediate takeaways from playing the golf course.
Yeah, almost one of those places that I do this with certain courses that I purposely don't learn a lot about them before I actually go and experience it for myself. Like I just want to have fresh eyes and really understand what the program is all about, like after leaving instead of before getting there, and kind of having preconceived notions. I think also some of that was just influenced by the tree removal as well. It seems like it's a pretty radically different golf course now versus 10 years ago. So you watch a lot of the previous, like it's awesome watching a lot of those YouTube, highlights of when Dustin won or when Cabrera won, or even, going way back, Johnny Miller, all of those. But, far different golf course today. I think probably just as hard, if not harder, but, in a really, really cool way. I thought it was, it's just such an expansive piece of property too, that you can't really get a sense of it until you're on site as well. Yeah.
Until you're on the actual holes too.
Yeah.
Like I take away flying the drone out there. I was kind of like, okay, that seems like doable. And you get out there, it's like, oh no, it's you can't really fully appreciate. That's again why the low camera angles are going to be important, because this place is all about contouring, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's contouring, it's scale, it's like crazy depth perception out there. There's all sorts of texture now too, and I think it'll only be better in the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the Open. We're recording this on June 2nd, and I think one of the other things is just I think the highway. I was blown away. Just like not just a highway, like one of the largest highways in the United States, like the Pennsylvania Turnpike, just ripping right through the middle of it, and somehow it works. Like
you don't even notice it, really. It's so much lower. Yeah,
you definitely hear it a little bit, but like it almost feels like it's just part of the routing, and it's part of the journey when you're on the golf course. And didn't quite get the full experience of the routing just because we started on what four or five. So we crossed over a few times, but I was blown away at just how well designed even those bridges are crossing over the highway. It's wild.
Because they got to shuttle the fans across that for the entire time. It's those two bridges
Yeah.
that do all of it there, but it works. And I don't remember any complaining about any of that or any logistic issues about any of that from the 2016 U.S. Open, which I went back and watched a fair amount of it as well. I was surprised how little I remembered from that, other than just the Dustin Johnson ruling thing, which still just makes me laugh how badly they bungled that one. But it,
So much TIO in
and
all the
now
YouTube videos too.
there's a
Some
really
egregious.
bad DJ TIO. There's a really bad Ernie TIO. You sent that over.
Yeah.
It's some really bad stuff. But what would you say your biggest takeaways of the actual golf course are, and the actual, what makes Oakmont in particular special? Why is the U.S. Open going there?
I think it's right there with Muirfield as like the just the best championship course I've ever seen. There's no shortcuts, there's no let up. There's some easier stretches of holes, I think, but it's a complete test. You got to be in the fairway, you got to putt it well, you got to lag putt it well. Your iron play has to be on point. Your distance control has to be on point. Like I've never seen something that just requires such a variety of shots off the tee, shots into greens, banks and cants of the fairways where you got to shape the ball. It's truly a complete test of golf, and we saw it on a day that it was wet, it was pretty slow, and I cannot imagine playing that place with lightning fast greens and lightning fast fairways too. Of just being able to like what was that hole in the back where you really have to draw it in there to even hold that fairway. And so it's like a physical, mental, and strategic examination of your golf game.
Yeah, it seems like, again, if you're probably gonna hear me say this a lot over the next couple weeks, maybe even later with Jeff Hall. But if you're a U.S. Open masochist and a traditionalist that loves thick rough, like this is gonna be your U.S. Open. You're gonna like it a lot. Now, what I'm really looking forward to, and I know we've done our fair share of like picking on Quail Hollow, but like it was killing me at Quail Hollow how often guys would hit poor shots into greens, and Trevor Immelman would say he's fine there, he's fine there, he's fine there. Which I'm not picking on Trevor, like that's just a reflection of kind of what that golf course is asking. I don't think there's going to be a lot of like wayward golf shots that are going to be like, oh yeah, that's fine there. There's going to be so much more consequence to every shot. Similar to we're recording this the day after Aaron Hills. Like there was just so much consequence if you were not getting your ball to stop in the right place. Now, help me with this. And I talk a little bit about this with Jeff a little later on, but I'm curious your thought here. I've gone to some of these media days before. I've gone to golf courses, U.S. Open golf courses prior. I've seen the thick rough, and I've said, this is going to be about accuracy. It's going to be about accuracy. And it ends up just being hit it as far as you want. And because everybody's missing fairways and the distance is the most important thing. Yet I think I said to you when we were playing out there, I was like, all right, if this place isn't the one that tests accuracy, I don't know what will, because it just felt like the punishments were so severe off the fairway that you couldn't just bomb it without inhibition. And you had to, like, some of these ditches right off the fairway. These fairway bunkers are not
Yeah.
pitch out sideways, but they're not balls aren't rolling to the bottom of them like Quail Hollow and easy to get out of. Are we
And
going
they
to
built
see
those lips up too. Like that was one of my big
intentionally?
takeaways was I think I was in a fairway bunker on our first hole, which was the fourth. And I could advance it. Like I could hit a 46-degree wedge out of it. Like I could advance it, you know, 80, 100 yards. And that was best case scenario, right? It's not overly penal where you're punching out sideways like a pop bunker, but it's a half to a full shot penalty.
Which, yeah, it again goes back to consequence and back to, I think we want to see accuracy get tested off the
Yeah.
tee. Um, I think I was team Bryson and Rory before we had seen it. And well, I mean, Scotty hadn't gone on his run like he has to this point. Now I'm right. I mean, obviously, I think everybody's going to be on Scotty coming into this one, but it just seems like a really good threading the needle of so many different aspects of a golf course.
I think one of the things that maybe was lacking at Winged Foot was there's not a lot of dog legs. So they took all those trees out and it was truly there's not as many angles and stuff too. Most of those greens are wide open in the front. And so I think there it was like, hey, advance it down there as far as possible and then figure it out. I think at Oakmont there's more dog legs. There's a specific side of the hole that's better to miss on for the most part. I think they're going to do a really good job with graduated rough too. Of like all rough wasn't created equal. They were hand mowing and just getting that stuff to stand straight up. And there's certain sides like that right side of 14 or 13. I keep messing it up. I'm just going to look
15, the
now.
long par four. Is that what you're thinking?
15. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That right side of that one, like,
That was
one
terrible.
of those places of like, yeah, like that, like straight up, like don't miss there, right? Or like you're like you might not be able to find your golf ball, kind of thing. So I think there, and then also just I think there's more angles into these greens as well. So,
There's
you
less
know,
openings in the front. Like Winged Foot was very
exactly.
open in the front. So if you're in the rough, you can find a way onto the green and figure out how to two putt. This is like not only are there less openings in the front, there's holes with openings in the front, but there's a lot more elevation change from the fairway, either going up the hill or down the hill to the point where, like, if you miss the fairway on two's a short par four. It is going to be one of the easiest holes out there. It played as the 13th hardest hole in 2016. They've expanded that green a little bit. They got some corners. We'll talk with Jeff about that a little later on. But like if you miss that, your life gets really, really hard. Like I don't know what the shot. You could be in a ditch left. You could be in a fairway bunker. Like the cant of that green is severe. The
Yeah.
greens are going to be firm. I would venture to guess. And there's so many bad spots to miss around that green where like it's you're gonna feel the effects of missing in the wrong spots. And that's where I think people struggle with the wing foot. Like you could kind of hit it anywhere, and you didn't feel the effects of hitting it in the wrong spot nearly as much,
Yeah,
if I
and it
remember.
felt like a lot of just like big square greens with a lot going on, but it's just a lot of internal contouring. Whereas these feel like they've got all that internal contouring, but also they've got all those wings, like you said. I think that was one of my biggest takeaways as well. Of like, there's certain spots, on like two is a really good example of like I felt like I was at LACC on some of those little fingers and wings, which makes sense with Gil kind of dusting that off too. But there's just certain bunkers and certain spots that, man, like cool, like you're probably going to end up there if you're trying to force the issue. Good luck getting it up and down from there. And then like I think that was the other thing of there's so many more compounding errors out there where if you don't take your medicine and just get it back in play or take the conservative approach and then play offense from there, you're going to end up making doubles, triples, quads, I think.
What are some of the most significant holes, or the holes that you've made the biggest impact on you here a month later? You're still thinking about, man, like when I think of Oakmont, here's the holes I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I thought one right off the bat, man, like just such a cool, it just like, I don't know, it was just like, it kind of reminded me of like my favorite stuff from like playing up in New England. And then it's like a blend of New England golf and Midwestern golf. And I thought one is just like, cool, you got OB right, you got these bunkers on both sides. You can hit it down there as far as you want, but it kind of narrows up, and then that green is just it's falling away from you, and the effective area that you can hit it in to feed it in is very, very small because there's so much going on as far as the mounding and everything there. So that was like a true sets the tone for the day, like welcome to Oakmont spot.
Which is
Yeah.
crazy. Like it's dead straight par four,
Yeah.
but like it, and I don't remember in 2016 if guys were actually driving it, but I remember them saying like guys could drive it. I think it was too wet in 16 with the rain that came, but like
Mm,
it runs so far downhill from the top of that hill that like they're saying just hit it over that hill and it's going to run all the guys could threaten driving the front. Now, really, really hard to keep it in the fairway for that long because it's so narrow and it's like a really long bowling alley. But it is just like off the bat, if you're missing that fairway, you're going to have to figure out because the green runs away from you and it's not flat from left to right either. Like you can run
yeah.
off to the sides really easily.
Yeah, there's this one little knob on the one side, and then if you're coming in from the rough with no spin on it, you could land it 20 yards short of that green and not even think about stopping on the
Totally.
green.
Totally. I
So,
mean, even from the fairway, if it gets firm and downwind, you might need to be playing way, way, way short of that green. And just that's the whole thing is like I was so behind the eight ball the whole day in the rough, chopping it out and like learning pretty quickly that I couldn't get anything more than a wedge on anything in the rough. Granted, we had it on a super wet day and it might dry out a little bit. It might be a little different for the best players in the world, but like I almost didn't even get to experience the challenge of the contouring and the slopes on the green, which are so dramatic. The green speeds they're talking about are insane, like psychotic. There's so much like you could put a pin in the middle of the ninth green, kind of where near where we had it, and it's not near an edge, it's not near a bunker, it's not near rough, and that's about as hard of a pin position as you could have possibly have, just because of how much stuff is going on internally in those greens. You're going to see these big squared off greens, and you can see in some of the images from above, like where the expansion has come in and what different pins are going to come in there. But my goodness, there's just so much going on there. You're going to be lag putting so frequently, and it's just going to be not, I don't want to call it a lag putting test, but again, back to that test of control of your golf ball on really slippery, slidey greens with a ton of slope and a ton of like, is this up or downhill? And
Yeah.
course knowledge is going to play a factor. It just, man, there's just layer upon layer on this golf course.
I think that's a great point, is like layers and like knowing how it's a really tough course to do your homework on, because there's so much shit going on that like you could play 10 practice rounds out there and be in 10 spots throughout the course of your round. We're like, I have not seen this before. Like weather to a certain pin, or you hit your shot to a certain part of the green. I think the other thing for me was the amount of variety and like going from one to two. Like two's what, 340, 350. But really thoughtful short par four. Like I'd always just thought of Oakmont as this big brawny brute, which it is, but there's also there's so much nuance and there's so much intricacy and thoughtfulness there too. Like it's truly the complete test. It's not just, hit it as hard as you can and wear out your 5 iron all day. And I think there's a bunch of flexibility that they have with tees and pins as well. Like these guys are going to see at least Thursday, lumping Thursday and Friday in together, which like I would imagine they probably keep those pretty similar, but probably 3 different golf courses from Thursday, Friday, and then into Saturday, and then into Sunday. So yeah, like two was another one for me, and then three, you go back to like, all right, cool. Here's another like 460, 470 yard par four with like one of the coolest greens I've ever seen.
Such
Like
a wild false front. Like it's just so dramatic. I don't even know if we properly captured how dramatic that one is. But it's one of those holes, like a lot of them are like, dude, if you're in the fairway, you're going to be fine. Like you're not going to
yeah,
have a hard time from the fairways here. You're really not. But if you're in the rough, I just don't picture it being flawless. I just
but
picture that mattering a lot.
like three was that was one of the coolest holes I played in a long time. Of like it was shades of number 10 at Shinnecock, or
Yep.
stuff you would like, or stuff that you're gonna see over in like Ireland or Scotland. And then the par fives are fair, and if you're in the fairway, you can start playing a little offense there. Um, they can stretch the par threes out to shit. They can stretch eight out to like almost 300 yards.
Oh, 300. Yeah, it can go over 300 yards depending on where they put the tee in the pin. Yeah.
So
Which let's get
like
out in front of the bitchingness about JT already saying
yeah,
that show me there's no good par threes over 250. Like it's a one shot hole. If they'd called it a par four, it'd be one of the best drivable holes anywhere in the
right.
world.
Just play
It
the hole
doesn't
that
matter. Everybody's
yeah
got to play the hole. It does not matter. The
yeah,
part of the
and they're
biggest.
not like, they're not just mindless holes. Like they're massive greens, and it can change. There's a bunch of short grass all around it too. But back to your, I mean, I think nine, you mentioned it, nine, like brute of a driving hole, but just such a cool blind shot up into that green, and the practice green connects to that green, and you got the porch behind and all of that. Just like one of the coolest kind of like seminal spots in all of golf. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like this place, and I think the other thing for me just playing it was like, it matches up with Pittsburgh, generally speaking, of just like it's a it's kind of a broad shouldered blue collar city. Like they build shit in Pittsburgh, right? And like it feels like you want to go out there and play. Like the membership, it's a player's membership. It's a true golf club of like, hey, bring your hard hat. We're gonna go play for money out here. We're gonna go count them all up, or we're gonna go do the SWAT, and it's gonna be, you got to come out here. You got to bring your game. You got to make some birdies, or else like we're gonna talk shit to you. Like we're gonna make you feel bad if you didn't show up with your A game today, which I think is awesome.
I would love to play Oakmont again, not in a US Open year, because I did
Yeah,
walk away being like, well, one, I just again didn't have my game that day, but I was like, I got nothing for that. I can't handle all that. That's so freaking hard. But I also walked away being like, this course is built for the United States Open. Like there's
yeah.
maybe no course ever that I've played. Like a Pinehurst is a great experience for literally any handicap level. Oakmont is not a great experience for any handicap level. It is, if you are a hacker, this is not the golf course for you. I don't think you're going to even have fun playing one of the top 10 golf courses in the world. Like it's meant to be that challenging. And the USGA treats it like it's one of the courses they've said they do the least amount of stuff to. Like they just kind of show up and do their normal stuff and don't have to manipulate this place to play hard and
Which, yeah,
fast.
sometimes I do roll my eyes at like, oh, we play the greens every day at 14 or 15 or, and it's like they do that there
Yeah,
and it's meant for that. And then that's what it's built for. And like, that's not out of character. It's not like they're dolling this place up to do that. I think the other, 10 was another one, like similar to one of just like straight down the hill. And you got to control your golf ball. And
off the tee and into the green because of the
yeah.
ditch that runs across that fairway. You got to hit you can't just bomb it anywhere you want to. And then you have to ball above your feet into a green that's canting away from you and right to left. You got to kind of hit some kind of hold up fade to hold it there, or else your ball's going to go straight to the back and you're going to have a very difficult two putt. Like it's just element on element on element.
And then I thought like 11 kind of tests a different part of your game, right? Where you gotta
Tell me about
think
11.
off the
I
tee.
don't get 11.
I don't think we got the best intel. Like playing it blind a little bit. I would have played it radically different having now seen it. But
What would you do?
truly
Would you just play short
I
and
would lay
because it's a
back, yeah, and just play it it's not like it's one of those holes that's like almost similar to like 15 at Erin Hills. Of like, all right, cool. It's like under 400 yards on the card. This is not a birdie hole today. This is
yeah.
you can get yourself tied up into knots on this hole. So, but that was where I think it really that's where it surprised me the most. Like 11, 12 was an awesome,
So
awesome
good.
par five. I think it's like 660, 670 from the tips, but like the way that green falls away from you, and if you get into trouble off the tee, you're pitching out and then you're hitting a 200-yard shot into a really, really difficult, spot. Like it's a really thoughtful third shot, I think.
It's a real par
Um,
5. It's a very
yeah,
real par 5. Yeah.
Deej was talking about that of like, hey, there's only a few real par fives left in the world. Was that 15 at Pine Valley, 6 at Tralee? And it's like that's certainly one of them. I think, and then like 13, that par three right afterwards is just, hey, I'm sure they'll play that one probably shorter a couple of days, and that's a touchier shot. It kind of reminded me more of what you would see at like a Brookline or something like that. And that'll be a great place to watch golf from. And then, 14, like 14 and 15, kind of two cool counterpoints to one another, kind of running along that ridge line. Like 15, that was a spectacular green there. And then 16 is like cool. Like I think I hit driver.
I didn't even remember that hole. Like, it is just a massive
It
par
was
3 with a huge
pouring.
false front. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't remember it from 2016. Like, I'm like, "Oh my god, there's a marathon par 3 left here."
Yeah.
They got the drivable 17th in there, which is played as
Yeah.
the easiest hole in 2016, and then 18, all about 18, the dead straight par 4, but tons of bunker elements and, again, crazy green contouring, and all of that, and it's man, the NBC's got a big task at hand here because there's so much nuance to all this stuff that I hope it gets documented and displayed. And otherwise, it's gonna, it's gonna wash out if the cameras are too high and you just focus too much on the rough or any of that because
That's the thing. I think the drone shots there, like how they can broadcast this one versus how they could broadcast it, last time it was here. Everything's come so far as being able to capture depth of field and, similar to what they did drone shot wise at Erin Hills of just like, oh my gosh, like they can capture two a little bit, or they can capture, a whole like 8 a little bit better. And I think just looking out to like where that far side of the property where I guess they bought the old public course that was there, and a lot of the spectators will kind of enter there. I mean, this is such a
so
big
big.
property. I mean, it's got to be a few miles out to that side of it, and it's kind of dips down and then back up. And so I think you get grandstands and you get galleries and those flags blowing in the wind, and like this is gonna look like I'm almost jealous of like, you know, my son Freddie's 8. like he's just getting into golf, and like this being one of the first major championships that he really is like intent to watch because he's just getting into watching it with me on TV, and like this being his impression of what a US Open is freaking cool. And I
Wow.
think that that's going to like come through on TV, and just I don't know, it's like, man, like we're doing it right. This is as excited as I've been for US Open in a decade. So
Hell yeah, TC. Let's go. All right. I'm going to let you go. I know you got a busy week up there in New York, but appreciate the thoughts here. I really wish we would have filmed your round instead of my round at Oakmont because you played great round of golf. Maybe you like the course more than I do. If you haven't checked out that Instagram reel, all 88 of my shots are public and out there because I had a nightmare of a day. But I greatly look forward to the U.S. Open next. Can't believe it's next week. And stick around here. We're going to chat with Jeff Hall here shortly. No Laying Up is brought to you by FanDuel. Every swing, every putt, every heart-stopping finish, FanDuel keeps you locked in with PGA Tour action like never before because right now, all customers get a 25% live profit boost for the RBC Canadian Open on the third and fourth round this weekend. Use your boost on anything from closest to pin to outright winners to top 20 parlays and more. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. Go to FanDuel.com/NLU to step up to the tee and take a swing at betting the RBC Canadian Open with a profit boost. FanDuel, official betting operator of the PGA Tour. Must be 21 and older and present in select states. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Now time for Jeff Hall.
Where there's a lot more due diligence done in advance of a site being selected. I'd say previously, early on in my career, it was, hey, here's where we're going, ops guys and everybody figure it out. And we've got away from that. And a golf course may be great, but can you make it work operationally? That's certainly a very key component. And obviously, right now, with our current strategic approach of getting way out with U.S. Open sites, that's been great for many of our other championships. Being able to leverage the U.S. Open along that player journey that John Bodenhammer talked about that day, from the juniors to the amateurs to the cup matches to the U.S. Open, it's changed quite a bit.
When you talk about when you get to the highest level of the men's U.S. Open, which is the probably I would venture to say the strongest test of golf anywhere in the world, only a certain number of venues put I'd say the fear of God into you when you stand up on certain shots and hit them. I certainly experienced it on that day, and I'm just kind of I'm curious. We've all heard the phrase, "We're not trying to humiliate the best golfers in the world. We're trying to identify them." I'm curious how you would define the modern U.S. Open test. What is it, and why does it what separates it out from what we see week to week, and even different from what we see in other major championships?
I think the goal, if we're going to the right venues, which we have been blessed with many really, really good venues, the goal is really to test every aspect of a player's game. It's not just about the physical ability to hit a shot from 178 yards. There are lots of guys in the world, not just on tour, that can play a golf shot from 178 yards. But can you do it with greens that are quite firm? Can you do it when the margin of error left and right is pretty finite? When 10 feet above the hole is no good, how many times do you play when 10 feet away from the hole is no good? Well, at a U.S. Open, 10 feet in the wrong spot can be no good. So it's testing all aspects. Can they drive the golf ball properly, play from the fairway? Obviously, the modern game has changed some of that equation a little bit. And I'd say that we've been trying to get our arms around how do we get back to making sure there is that premium on driving the golf ball. But driving the golf ball is important. Recovery is important. Deft putting touch is important. And yet, and to do all of that, we got to get the golf course pretty close to the edge. But what we've tried to do in recent time is be near enough to the edge that we can see it, but not let a gust of wind blow us over that edge. But even the bunkers, if we talk about that for a minute, it shouldn't be a situation where when the ball's in the air, the player is rooting for the ball to go in the bunker. Negative, Ghost Rider. That's just not what we want. I would like to think that when the player goes into the bunker, the lie dictates what they can do with it, not they can go in the bunker and do whatever it is they want with the ball. Now, they're supremely talented. And you really can't play defense against their abilities. I mean, they are that good. But let's let them react to what they get. I think I read somewhere many years ago, old Tom Morris once said, bunkers are not places of pleasure. And, that's what it should be. It used to be a hazard. With the new rules now, the terminology, but again, it's all of those things combined. And then I think you take into the pressure of what you're playing for and put that all in the pot, stir it around. And I would argue the names on our trophy we've identified a lot of the world's best players.
So I want to talk a little bit about rough in general. There's going to be a lot of rough at Oakmont. Rough has been synonymous with the U.S. Open for many years, and I think I want to know kind of how your understanding of how that challenges players maybe potentially has evolved over time. Because I think for a long time, the understanding, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, was that thick rough and narrow fairways tested accuracy. I think we've seen several instances of that where, we've learned that's not necessarily the case. I'd say Bryson at Winged Foot kind of was a wake up call for all of us to say, well, if it's narrow and everybody ends up in the rough, the distance factor is going to be the strongest factor. And you just want to be as far down there if you're going to be in the rough anyways. Yet if you make it too wide, then the bombers are just going to be able to bomb it all over the place without fear of it. I'm really curious to hear how you think Oakmont splits that gap. How do you split that gap, one, and how are you trying to do that with this championship?
We've certainly tried to return to preparing and presenting the golf courses the way the architect intended for them to be prepared. There was a period there in the 50s, 60s, maybe even to the 70s, where it was almost a cookie cutter U.S. Open. We took our setup and put it on every golf course at the expense of covering bunkers and really eliminating some of the strategy to playing a golf course, when the architect spent a great deal of time designing a golf course from a strategic standpoint. Now, the game has evolved, our setups have evolved, and you're right. I mean, Bryson was the only guy under par at Winged Foot, so I would say Winged Foot did its job, but there were people who were aghast that he finished under par, and obviously nearer to the hole is better than farther from the hole if you're going to be in the rough, especially if you're big and strong and can get the golf ball up there. I don't think anybody would argue he pitched and putted beautifully especially that round, but even that week. So it wasn't just a one club show, but your point is not lost. The way to make it happen, I guess, is to make sure the rough, you just can't play from it. But, 7 inches tall and you can't play from it. And I'm not sure that really qualifies as golf. I mean, you and I might have as much of a chance as the best players in the world to chop the ball back out into the fairway from very exceedingly long rough.
And at what point is that a test of a player's skill? I think is the question that.
Yeah, exactly. We have used graduated rough since 2006. That was the first year that I got involved with setup with the U.S. Open. Mike Davis asked me to be his kind of wingman, and have been doing it ever since. And that was an interesting approach. If you miss it just a little, because that was what we always heard. I missed the fairway and the intermediate by 2 steps, and I get the same deal as the guy that's missed by 10 yards further right of me. Or even worse, I'm a real straight driver of the golf ball. I've missed 2 fairways by a total of 2 yards. And the guy I'm playing with has hit it outside the ropes. All
Yeah.
and now
It's
that
also,
part I can't equate.
yeah.
There's just not much we can do with that. It's unless we do pay-per-view, we're not going to be able to sort that out. But I do think we're going to see this at Oakmont. We are not going to experiment. We're not experiment. We're not going to implement graduated rough this year. When we looked at each hole on a hole-by-hole basis, we just didn't see a single hole that truly needed that. Now, we will maintain the rough. Gosh, it hasn't stopped raining up here. Since you guys left for media day, it has not stopped raining up here. It's been brutal. I mean, I think if you're quiet, you can hear the rough growing out there at Oakmont. I am very confident Mike McCormick and team will have plenty of rough for us. How often we'll have to, hopefully it's dry, how often we'll have to cut it. We're going to wait and see when we get there during advance week as to how actively it's growing. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but at some point we will give the rough mowers, the rest of the week off, I'm sure. But what are your thoughts? How would you curb it? I'm not sure. I mean,
it's hard. It's really hard. And it's because I do think that there is an element of testing a player's skill with an element of rough, because I would consider myself a very, very solid golfer, but I don't drive it very great, especially right now. And I had one of the worst days of golf I've ever had at Oakmont. But it was like, the question was clear. It was like, hey, and the answer, I should say the answer was clear. Like, hey, dude, you're not good enough. Like, what do you want me to say here? Like, you're not good enough. So it felt fair. Yet the balance I find sometimes between fair and good test and the most entertaining style of golf, because there should be an element of skill, I think, in playing out of the rough. Yeah.
And that's really what the graduated rough was intended. I mean, if we just use round numbers, you had a 1.5 inch intermediate. The players still have pretty good control, maybe not complete control, but pretty good control of the golf ball. 3 inches of rough, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 out of 10 times they could advance the ball up to the green, and let's let the architecture and gravity work and see where the ball goes. You get to the next level of rough where it's 5+ inches. That might only be 3 out of 10 times that they could think about getting the ball up there by the green or to the green. So there's certainly an element of chance, but I would say with the weather we've had and the way they've maintained things at Oakmont, there's not going to be a tremendous inconsistency in the rough. Maybe you catch a little patch of Poa annua and it might not be quite as high as the bluegrass, but there's not a lot of those patches either.
Well, I think it's also, if you could guarantee firm and fast conditions and some wind, you don't need rough. You don't need thick rough, I would say, because if you end up in that rough, you can't get near pins. You are going to pay a punishment. And what I really respect and love about Oakmont is the tilt, the camber, and whatnot of the greens, and the severity of what's around the greens, how the bunkers cut into the greens, the difficulty of the slopes on the edge of the bunkers, the way that balls can nestle up against lips in the bunker. They don't all filter to the same spots. There's so much challenge around all that. And if I could pick on the most recent major championship in Quail Hollow, there wasn't that balance, especially because those bunkers were designed to filter the ball into the bottom of those bunkers. They weren't especially deep, and they didn't present especially challenging shots. So, if you're off by a little bit on some of these shots into the greens in Oakmont, you are going to be presented with especially challenging shots, pretty much regardless of the conditions, because it's going to be fast enough. If you're above some of these holes and you have a bad lie around the greens, you're not going to be able to stop the ball. So
completely agree.
That's kind of what I get at with, like, I want the opportunity for that to be the level of mistake instead of watching guys chop out of 6-inch rough, which is not what you're talking about. But I think some people listening at home, they just tune in and watch the US. They just want to see rough. That's where I think Oakmont is
pain,
a weirdly,
torture.
weirdly
Exactly.
good center spot, I think, for all types of golf fans. If you love thick rough, like, Oakmont's going to have a lot of that. I don't love thick rough, but Oakmont's got so much stuff that I do like that I'm really excited for this championship. I feel like it's a very good happy medium for a lot of golf fans.
You make an interesting point, Chris, about the bunkers. It might be the most visible element of the restoration with respect to, shall we say, player commentary, during the week. When you file an entry for the U.S. Open this year or any year we go to Oakmont, you know the greens are going to be fast, and there's a pretty good chance there's going to be rough. I mean, those are kind of givens. But the bunkers through the years had evolved into the type of bunker you're speaking of at the PGA, where the sand dam just keeps building up, and the bunkers, big high faces, and the bunkers would filter to the bottom. Well, now with that original type bunker that Phones had put in there, which is very similar to the Ross bunker, that flat bunker, you're right. They get up near the front lip, especially the fairway bunkers. They get up near the front lip, and yet the lips aren't nearly as high as they were. And I remember visiting with some of the members there. They were saying, "Oh, these bunkers, they're going to be too easy. They're going to be too easy. They're just too easy." And everybody, a couple other folks were saying, "Well, tell me, how much lower is your handicap as a result of these easy bunkers that we've got?" Yeah, it hasn't changed. Okay, on to the next question.
Well, that's what fairway bunkers and greenside bunkers alike. The very clear message to me was, don't hit it here. Like, do not hit it here. Like, you're gonna have a bad time if you do. And
exactly.
like you said, to that point of, you never want to see a player rooting for a ball to get into a bunker.
That's a pet peeve.
Not going to see a lot of that. Now, one other thing I noticed. So I tend to like a lot of variety off the tee for what kind of misses you're going to have. And I always say, like, a weird good middle spot is TPC Scottsdale in the PGA Tour, in terms of, you can get a sandy lie, you can get near a bush, you can need to get some creativity of a lot of different kinds. And obviously you can't just like pick up that particular style. You can't pick a Pinehurst style and just take that to the Northeast, all that to say. But one thing I did find especially unique, that it's not just rough on repeat, are some of these ditches at Oakmont. And some of these, they're nasty. And so I don't know. I can't really describe why I like this, but I tend to like when the size of the punishment is not necessarily correspondent to the size of the miss. To your point earlier, saying some guys were getting just barely into the rough, ending up in thick rough, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, there are some of these ditches that are very close to these fairways. If you miss, I think it's the 15th hole, if I'm thinking of properly, just to the left of that, you're going to be in a ditch. You would know where they're all located better than I would. But I saw some of the second hole, especially. Of those, right. And I was like, holy crap, some guys are maybe gonna have some things to say about missing a fairway by a couple yards, but having that level of punishment. Can you talk a bit about the balance of that kind of punishment?
I think too, Chris, imagine, is that any different than the 18th hole at the Players Course?
Right.
There's just no water.
Right.
That's all. If they were full of water, I think they would say, well, geez, I'm in the water. I got to play. I can't usually play the ball out of the water, and sometimes water is very nearby the fairway. 13 at Augusta. You could have your feet in the water and you're playing a shot that's high and dry, or vice versa. But when you can maybe see the ball, and you may be down on one knee and standing on one leg, and can I get it out of here, or should I just use the rules and get out of here? Yeah, we'll see how what's a great line from Top Gun? Is your ego going to write a check your body can't cash, right? I mean, that's kind of what happens with some of those, when you can see your ball, therefore I should be able to hit it. Well, that may not be the case, but there's no doubt Phones put these in, even though they may not carry water on a daily basis, although they might be carrying some water right now. But then again, too, in 1903, how else did, and no drainage system, they're moving water through gravity. And this was, let's get the water over to this ditch and get it out of the way. 2 is a great example, because I'm going to play away from the bunkers on the right, and I can't play too far away from those bunkers on the right. And I think that's part of it. Yeah, here we go.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm pulling up some slides here of some holes that Jeff went through on our media day that I want to talk through as well. But yeah, it comes right into the line of play, that ditch on the left. And as I understand, this was part of Gil Hanse's work that he did in the restoration. Is that correct?
Yeah. The interesting, fascinating thing, oftentimes when you hear about restorations, you find drawings from a given year, and all right, we're going to put the golf course back to 1912, just to throw something out. Gil had free reign with the membership said, let's make a best of, kind of a greatest hits album. 1903, when Phones laid it out and built it, through 1946. And he and his team tried to find the best version of each hole. So yeah, some things got a little bit closer. The second hole here, I wish I was able to have an absolute overhead on this, because it would be so much easier. But you could see that drive zone in 2016. It's kind of a uniform width, pretty much up to that pot bunker short of the green, just 30 yards short of the green. Now there are pockets of fairway that have been restored around the first set of drive zone bunkers, and then there's another drive zone bunker that's kind of a bit of a stop sign. So you could play into 3 different pockets depending on how much risk you want to take with your tee shot, and maybe, as illustrated by the red dot, which is really a back left hole location, that's a new hole location that's available to us, that I'm telling you. And it was, I think you guys may have played it that day.
We were back middle, kind of in that little
middle?
tongue
Okay.
there.
Must
That
have been
looks
the day
also a little
before.
different. Yeah.
You stand in the fairway back there, and it absolutely looks like whoever set the hole did not hit the green.
That's something that I think, a little design technique, and is especially a restoration technique with a lot of what's going on, is having little sections of greens jut out into rough areas or bunker areas, or however you want to describe it. Having bunker areas or rough cut into the greens seems to me to be one of the most interesting ways to test the best players in the world when they don't have a clear designated bailout spot to go. I think to Harbor Town of why that golf course is able to host the best players in the world at the length that it's at very frequently. And I think about like that 13th green, just it's not a round green. It is almost like it looks like a fidget spinner almost with the 3 different sections of it. And you can make some really difficult hole locations for some of the best players in the world. And that's where I've seen so many, and we'll go through some of these, but that's exactly what it looks like you guys are planning to do this year.
I listen, you don't need to go Dean Smith and go 4 corners. I love it when we can find a really interesting hole location that's a central hole location. The 9th green has a couple that are in the middle of the green, but there's a lot going on around it. It looks very inviting, but if you don't hit it 3 feet, you've got some putts from 20 feet that may break in 2 different directions. But this is wonderful, because in 2016, we were in that back central area twice, and then over there in that little left against I'm saying left, golfer's right, by those bunkers over there twice, because those were the only places where golf balls would come to stop. They would actually stop. So now with the sides of the greens that have been lowered by Gil because of the sand dams, edges matter along the greens. So a ball with any pace is going to tumble over the edge as opposed to go up a slope and come back to the center of the green. But this is going to be a dandy hole location. You can bet the egg money we'll be using this one.
I'm excited for that one. So from what we heard, it sounds like green speed plans, I believe the number that was shared was 15 on the stimp meter, is the aspiration if all goes well. There's a lot of tilt on these greens. There's a lot going on with these greens. None of them are flat, if I remember right. And it's not like there are just humps and bumps everywhere. It felt like it's what I love about courses up in the Northeast is they blend in so well with the land. And part of the big challenge is just dealing with these heavily sloped in one direction greens. What's the relationship like between the green speed that challenges pros, yet also wanting to be able to use all the parts of the greens, all the hole locations that you want, that if you get them too fast, you can't use this special pin, blah, blah, blah. How are you guys viewing that balance?
We want to be able to use all the unique hole locations at Oakmont. And yet we also want to present Oakmont in the way that Oakmont is presented pretty much every day. I would say that you would see green speeds at or around 15 first thing in the morning as we're out doing setup, knowing they're going to settle back a little bit. And we'd be thrilled if we can play golf for most of the day in the mid to upper 14s. That would be really our target. We know we can use all the hole locations at those speeds. And we've worked really close with Mike McCormick and Devin Gee, the golf professional there. We may know the U.S. Open really well, but we never know the golf course as well as they do.
Sure.
So why wouldn't we ask for their thoughts and points of view on these things? And They've been really helpful in, yeah, I know that looks like it works, but I'd be careful with that. Or, hey, believe it or not, this one does work, that we would have dismissed. Having Scott Langley and Brent Palladino on our team, both really good players. Obviously, Scott played on tour in the Corn Ferry Tour, and I know you guys know Scott pretty well.
Sure.
That's a good
resource.
It's good to have them out there hitting putts too. Yeah.
100%. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through some of these other the whole changes or
sure.
I guess I doubt people have memorized what Oakmont looked like in 2016, but in case you're wanted to look out for a couple things that will be a little bit different this time around, this is the 7th hole you were telling us about.
Yeah, this is one where I think the driving is really different. You can see with the slide on the left, again, it's like a bowling alley from where the fairway begins up to those bunkers. Short or long, with it, the exam question is very, very obvious. Drive it in the fairway or you're in trouble. Now in 2025, the bunkers on the golfer's right have remained by and large in that location. But the bunkers on the golfer's left have been pushed back a little closer to the tee, and there's a semi-cross bunker. And that cross bunker from the back edge of the U.S. Open tee is in the 295 range. And we know the tour average is 286 for carry. So I think what we will likely do there is slide the tee markers pretty far up on that tee, 10, 12 yards or whatever we need to do, depending on the wind, and give the guys a choice. Hey, do you want to take on the cross bunker, get it over that and have a really good look at the putting green, or maybe I don't want to take on quite that much risk and I'll drive it to the right, because that fairway at the 300-yard mark now is almost 50 yards wide, and just drive it short of the bunkers, golfer's right in the drive zone. I'll be in short grass, but I won't be able to see what I'm doing. And I think just a really unique strategic element of a hole that really didn't have as much tee shot strategy previously.
So what I'm hearing, though, tying into a question I would have is what I'm hearing. All right, tour average is 286. Bryson DeChambeau doesn't average 286. Rory McIlroy doesn't average 286. How do you balance the setup of a golf course so that the obstacles in the way aren't not even considered for them, right? If a basic math equation based on what you're just saying, if I'm Bryson, I'm hitting it over all the trouble. I'll go find it up there and we'll figure it out from there. Is this one of many examples like that on the golf course, or what are the what's stopping Bryson from putting that strategy into play?
Listen, I think there's probably half a dozen, 8 players that even if we tipped that hole, don't look at the cross bunker. And I don't know if you want to design the golf course so that in all cases you're taking them out of play and then just making it much easier for everybody else. Now, I don't believe we have a slide, that I didn't cover it in the during media day, but the 12th hole is just the opposite. Much more difficult for the long hitter,
sure,
with the pitch of that fairway than for the average hitter on tour, where there's a little bit more room to drive the golf ball. So, it works in reverse. And as we both know, distance has always been an advantage in golf from the first time it was played till this week. Well, maybe Colonial may not be the right course. Certainly at Oakmont, if you can use distance properly, it's always an advantage. But I think we'll have enough holes at Oakmont, 15, another one. The longer down range you go, the tougher it is. You get up over the knob, you can't see where you're going. There'll be opportunities for the average player to have maybe a leg up and the longer player to have to think, and vice versa. I don't know. It's kind of like trying to come up with hole locations where you're going to get 9 back, 9 front, 9 right, 9 left. It isn't going to happen.
Yeah. What about the 8th hole, famed par 3?
This
longest
is
par 3 in U.S. Open history, maybe the world's history for all we know. Tell us about this, Jake.
But from its inception, it was intended to be a long par 3, and the rest of us have to hit head covers into par 3s. Why can't the best players in the world have to hit some head covers into par threes. But I think what's happened here is now okay, I'm just going to play 5 yards short of the front edge and have a fair amount of width to play to, and I'll just try to chip it up and in. Because as greens go, there's not a lot going on with this green, which there shouldn't be with this type of hole. But now, with the way that the large bunker on the left has been, it hooks around a little bit more, and the little extension of that new reinstated bunker there, it's tightened up that approach a little bit, where you've got to be a little bit more precise. But to me, the thing that might even be more impactful is the loss of those back two right bunkers. To our comments earlier, get in the bunker, right? I mean, they get down into that area now where there's that 5-inch rough. Okay, they play it like a bunker shot with as much skill as they have, with as much repetition in preparing. Okay, they probably have a pretty dependable understanding of what's going to happen, but not as dependable as playing out of a bunker. And sure. We'll see how that works.
I don't want to hear any complaining from any players about the length of this hole. If it was a par 4, it changes nothing about the championship at all. Still the lowest score wins. It just changes whether it's a birdie or a par, and it's all about the concept of the hole. You can make it a par 5 or a par 2. It would be the exact same. Doesn't matter.
It just makes the standard bearer have to work harder.
Exactly. That's all it is. That's all it is. Just play the hole. So the 10th hole, pretty somewhat radical change here with this one, with the restoration of the ditch that runs across the fairway.
Yeah, really, really neat. But listen, it's from the very back of the U.S. Open tee. It's 350 to cover the ditch, which obviously is a long way, but it does play with the wind. If we get a typical southwest breeze, and it plays downhill, probably 8 yards, maybe 10 yards. But if we slide the tee up a little bit, do you tempt somebody to try something that they probably can do, but should they? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And we'll see what they do. I also think the ditch, it requires thought now on your layup. You've got a boundary out there that you can't. It's not, well, I'll hit 3-wood, and if it chases an extra 15 yards in 2016, well, so what? Well, you don't want to do that here with that ditch coming across. So, again, I love that Rory McIlroy quote. We all struggle with options, and I don't know. This may not be an option for many guys, but certainly the club they're going to use, it's downhill. The firmness of the fairway will impact. It's a more thoughtful layup shot than it was.
Yeah, it turns this hole that's just straight away, which is going to be pound driver for all these guys, into, can you control the distance of your club that you want off the tee? And this, I mean, there's so many elements of challenge already still within this. I mean, the ball's going to be above your feet in the fairway, hitting into a green that slopes away from you and right to left. So you're going to have to hit a little fade held up against, if you really want to hold this green, especially with that pin on the right and the wind out of the right. When we played it, like, it was a really, I hit this fairway and I was like, I ended up making bogey because it was a really, really challenging approach shot. Anyways, that's the layers of Oakmont that I like, kind of forcing that back into their hands there.
As I said earlier, it's not just about physically executing. And I happen to believe, this will be my 4th U.S. Open at Oakmont as a member of the staff, 3rd involved with setup. I happen to believe Oakmont is the best mental test of golf we have in the U.S. Open. It just doesn't stop coming, and you're exhausted. My first 13 years on staff, I was in the scoring area at the U.S. Open, listening to 156 players sing the praises of the USGA, and when they came in, they were exhausted from the requirements of a U.S. Open. But this place is, you've got to have incredible focus.
It exists to host this tournament, honestly. Like it's too hard otherwise. Like it literally exists to host this tournament.
Well,
I think.
How about a one golf course architect, and we're going back for the 10th time for the National Open?
Amazing. Pretty amazing. The couple slight changes here on the long par 3 16th hole as well.
Yeah, the coffin bunker, as it's referred to now, on the left side, right up there, very beginning, you can have some really awkward stances. Right there where the approach, where the bunker is adjacent to the approach, you could have some really awkward stances depending on where you're trying to play the golf ball onto the green. And then taking out that bunker front right, you give even tight grass down there, I think it would be a difficult pitch. Okay, they get some spin on it, but they're not getting any spin on it from the grass down in there right now. And so you miss it short and right, you got to hit it hard enough to get it all the way up there. And yeah, and this green's got so much tilt. Another wonderful use of the land by phones with that approach to get it to that. You can see the whole location's well right in the 2025 photograph, but you don't have to hit it there. You can just hit it left, but now you do have that coffin bunker hanging there waiting for you to take a big first bounce. Or there's
a lot of strategy in that. A lot of different club depending on where you want to land this. If you want to land it short,
Absolutely.
your line's going to be different than if you want to land it all the way up onto the green. And
it's a long teeing area too, where we can really maneuver the tee markers as we wish, even if we've got two hole locations that are fairly near each other.
And last one, the short drivable par 4 17th hole. What will people notice is different about this one?
Well, this is drivable all the time. As much as I wish they wouldn't on Thursday, Friday to help us with pace of play, it certainly could be. But boy, as a 71st hole, it's such a contrast to the other. If you start at the 15th tee, really big par 4 there, demanding par 3 on 16, and it's waiting for you on 18. And then here you have this little 312-yard hole that cost players a chance to win. You think of Jim Furyk and the chance. He's always played well here, but had a chance and maybe try to do something that is not vintage Jim Furyk, drive the green, and made a bogey. You could obviously lay it out to the right and play a wedge shot in there. It may not be the scariest wedge shot you'll ever play, but it's certainly not a layup. But I think you'll see a lot of guys try to drive it between the short bunkers left and then that first kind of back left bunker, if you will, and try to drive it up in there. If it's in the approach, great. If it's in the rough, I'll pitch it and take my chances of chasing it to whatever hole location is available. But there's enough going on that green that's easier said than done in a number of cases. And obviously that front right bunker, the first one there, big mouth as they call it, and as well as anybody, if there's a bunker that's got a name, you want no part of it. Right? I mean, that's just the deal.
Yeah, it's such a great little twist at this end. Is this little?
Yeah, there's a wonderful grandstand that's going to be kind of over there in the area of that rain shelter that you see in the photo. If you got up in that back top corner, you could watch the whole finish through the tee shots on 18. So that would be a good one for anybody listening that's going to be there. Get there early.
Good to know. What any final parting thoughts as we head barreling towards the U.S. Open? Anything that we didn't cover this week that you think is of import to our listeners?
Our goal in all of this. I mean, the folks that do setup, we take our job very seriously, but it's not about us. If we do our job properly, it's about the golf course and the best players in the world doing what they do best. We try to present the stage for the actors to go do their thing and really do not want to be part of the story. But that said, we need to be respectful of the venues we go to, and they all have their own personality. And this phone's personality of the most difficult golf course on the planet from its inception is so embraced by that membership. They're proud of their golf course, as they should be, but that's what Oakmont has been forever. And fast greens, rough, just challenging golf from beginning to end. We want the players to get every club in the bag dirty, and then there's that mental part of it. So you're going to have to be in control of your physical game, your mental game, your emotional game, and if any of those wander or you're just not on, Oakmont's going to expose you in many different ways. But very excited for the 10th playing.
I'm laughing because I'm just laughing because, yeah, the Henry Phones quote you're referring to: "Let the clumsy, the spineless, the alibi artist stand aside. A shot poorly played should be a shot irrevocably lost." Uh, that was exactly how I felt playing that golf course. I was clumsy, spineless. I don't know what an alibi artist is, but I was one of those probably as well. And it was, if you misplayed a shot, you did not. I did not recover from. But it's very hard to recover. Like you will lose, maybe not a full shot, but you will lose strokes with your mistakes on this golf course, and that's. I think that's the mark of a good challenge of a golf.
Couldn't agree. And with my involvement at Oakmont, we certainly saw a very firm Oakmont in 07 and 5 over wins. We saw a softer Oakmont in 16 and 4 under wins. Oakmont's hard no matter what. It's just a different kind of hard. If we get, Mother Nature gets a seat at the table, and right now she's watering the heck out of the rough, but I certainly hope it changes in a couple of weeks.
Well, a lot of rain is going to present a different kind of hard, right? Because we got the wet, thick rough, and that's a lot worse than dry, wispy, long rough. I mean, it was just all encompassing and swallowing. So, anyways, I could take up a lot of your time telling the tales of the 88 strokes I took to get around Oakmont. But Jeff, we really appreciate your time. Best of luck with the championship this year. Hope to do it again in the future.
Thank you. My pleasure.
For FanDuel, must be 21 and older and present in select states. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chad in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050. For 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Thank you for listening.